Technology, art, entertainment. My name is Paul, and this is another sketching video. I changed the camera angle a bit, and it made sure that my big hairy hands were in the way of any drawing I was doing, so sorry about that in advance. But decided to do a bit of a different piece this time, and what I'm doing is more of a sort of event piece where I'm not just showcasing a character, but I'm showcasing a relation between two characters. This is going to be a demonic character holding a more human character as, well, the emotion is more of a play thing. The demon's sort of holding up this helpless human in a way that the human can't escape or anything like that. And one of the difficulties when drawing two different things, so like a human and a demon, is that you have two chances to screw something up. So you want to make sure that the anatomy is close enough before you start filling in details, and then let the details sort of fall where they may. I'm starting to add in a bit of facial details for this demon here. Now, these demons are part of a fictional universe. I started creating pretty in-depth around 2007, and I'm still sort of writing stories and whatnot, and I eventually sometime in my life might make games or illustrate stuff to do with them a bit further. But it's a story called Hell by Another Name, and it's a story about demons that embody all the unfairness and taboos of our society, and they have their own wretched society that has lots of unfairness and terrible nature, but they have a society nonetheless, and to many people their society seems very tempting. I can't talk today. But as I'm filling in a bit of details to these demons, the main thing that I like to have is the demons' faces. I like to have them look like skulls, so they have very pronounced eye ridges and orbits around their eyes. And as I'm filling in the fingers here around the human character's head, I want them to sort of wrap around the character's head, so that essentially this demon's holding up this poor soul by nothing but his head, and the character's sort of struggling in pain, trying to escape this demon's grasp. I've drawn these sort of things before, but it sort of helps illustrate the size difference between the massive and powerful demons versus the helpless humans who inhabit the hellish realm. And this is one of the reasons why I was so drawn to the series of games in the Doom universe, because it's just all demons and awesomeness. Very cool. But this is sort of one of my more tame pieces. Usually I draw these things with a bit more violence and usually intact genitalia and whatnot, and that's not appropriate for YouTube. So this one I just sort of cut off at the waist so that people can't see any of the gruesome bits. A lot of people as artists are sort of afraid of the eraser, and I say, no, embrace the eraser. Let the eraser be your friend. Just because you have to erase something doesn't necessarily mean you're a bad artist. It just means that you have to make edits. And in Photoshop and all that sort of stuff, you get Control-Z, so might as well use that eraser while you can. Although I would suggest practicing with pen, because it gets you to a point where you are more confident with your strokes. When you don't have access to that eraser, it sort of improves your skill, but it doesn't necessarily mean the eraser is a bad thing. You should be willing to make mistakes. And I make tons of mistakes in these videos. Some I erase, some I catch later, so there you go. Now, I'm doing a bit of a different sort of shading to my last video. I'm doing a basic ambient occlusion pass, but I also, later on, I shade it so that the demon looks a bit more lit from below, so like a hellish lava pit is lighting him up, but it's very subtle, and in the end, it doesn't change much of the shading, but it does add a bit of character to the overall piece. Normally I put a lot of detail into these horns, but as I've found out is you can get away with a lot less detail, and it takes a lot less time. If you go really detail dense on the horns, they can sort of stand out versus the less detail dense parts of the rest, so it generally doesn't add much to add in every single ring of the horns and every striation of color. It doesn't add much in the end, so I found that a little bit of shading here and there does the job. Another thing with these demons is they're mostly human with their anatomy. They have a bit overbuilt neck muscles, and their head, of course, is very different from a standard human, but overall they're generally very human in stature. Some of the demon species have 4 arms, and some of them are shaped like snakes and whatnot, but regardless, they have anatomy matching that what you would find in nature. So the snake demons have snake anatomy, that sort of thing. In this particular piece, I wanted to sort of accentuate just the effortlessness of this giant demon holding up this human. So his left arm is sort of just like lazily hanging, and his right arm is just holding this thing up like he just picked up an interesting looking rock. It's a toy to him. He's just, oh, what's this? What's going on here? It doesn't take much effort for him to lift a full-grown human. And when you have so many different overlapping pieces, the shading gets a bit difficult because you want your shading to be very dark for things that are behind the main focus. But when you have so many different things overlapping, take for instance, you have the fingers overlapping the head, and then the head is overlapping the back of the arm, you have to make sure you don't overshade certain things too much. Unfortunately, this camera angle makes it very hard to see exactly what I'm doing, but you can sort of see what I'm doing after I move my big hand. So one of the things that I didn't want to do is overshade the human character, so I don't go too crazy darkening up areas on him or her. I tried to make it very androgynous. It could be a male or female, but it's mostly leans towards the male. And the silhouette can really be fixed up. If you did something wrong with the outline of the character, you should just use a darker silhouette to cover up mistakes, things like that. When in doubt, use the eraser. Like I said, the eraser's your friend. And I'm doing a sort of second pass on the shading, making sure that the darker parts are really dark. And also, here's where I add in the bit of not down lighting, but up lighting on the various features of the demon, making it look as though there's a bit of lighting coming from below. Just adds a bit of sinister intention to his features. I'm not shading the body too much because I want the focus to be on his look of complete and total non-importance. He doesn't see this cowering creature that he's holding as anything significant. He's just holding it up because he's curious. Meanwhile, the human's struggling. So just a bit of more silhouette work, making sure all the outlines are the same density. You want the outlines to sort of accentuate the silhouette. So you don't want them to be too dark in areas, and you don't want them to be too light in areas. So here's a little trick I learned with the horns. Just a bit of changing the outline, just adding a bit of dark outline can really change how they're perceived. So I want these horns to look very spiky and whatnot. So just adding a bit of silhouette detail really changes how you perceive them. So instead of being very smooth like like an antelope horn, they become more like a goat horn. And a bit of detail here and there with the demon's eyes, because I like the idea of the eyes being completely covered in shadow at all times because they have these deep skull-like eye sockets. So that's the drawing there. As I'm just filling in a bit of detail here, you can sort of see that I'm filling in the background like I do. But overall, I had fun doing this one. Let me know if you like this. I always enjoy dark imagery and confronting imagery, which is one of the reasons why I sort of keep all the nitty-gritty details intact on many of my pieces. But I can't really do that on YouTube because that breaches policy. Either way, tell me how you liked it, and let me know what else you'd like to see me do. Thank you so much, and you all have a lovely day.